Coming up. No! And now. That's it. The Last of Us Episode 3 broke me. It has broken my format because I cannot make fun of it. We're getting right to the analysis. Screw it. The third installment, Long Time, serves as a kind of study in manhood. Wait, what? Where'd you get that from? Hold on, hypothetical anticipatory skeptic. I think it's rather easy to look at these characters just as characters. However, what we do here is take things a step further. Masculinity has become a renewed point of interest in our society. I think The Last of Us offers an antidote to all the noise. Here's Bill, a man closed off, literally and emotionally. Now, notice it's by this kind of armor he's made for himself that he actually survives. Bill's name means protection. As the masses are loaded up to face extinction, Bill's rigid diligence prevails. This show isn't dismissing being closed off as something exclusively harmful. This world is fierce and impersonal, in fiction and in real life. Someone not strong enough isn't going to make it very long. Let it be known, as this episode shows us, the image of the strong man is a valid classic symbol. Hell, above validity, it's essential, as it is the key to survival. In an apocalypse setting, sure, but as well in our real lives. However, there comes a degree of consequence to this lifestyle. A degree of consequence many a tough man refused to acknowledge. The Last of Us illustrated very poetically that this is not living. It's just survival. There is an enormous difference between the two. One must survive in order to live, but Bill was, because of his armor, incapable of living. So comes a symbol for life, for freedom, Frank. The distant messenger archetype has been with us in art for a very, very long time. One of my personal favorites is depicted in the children's book, The Little Prince, which I'll touch on later. No matter the story, a character living in some sort of fallacy experiences a divine intervention from some faraway messenger which totally upheaves the way they're living. Frank is a logo for the warmer experiences of life. Love, joy, art, kindness. All of which Bill has clearly been lacking. I really like how they introduced Frank. He brought melody to a home bathed in silence. But again, we don't want to analyze these characters as just these characters, so let's take it a step further. There is a compartment of man which extends out from the unconscious, down below, and controls his whole personality, the anima. Let's check what our friendly neighborhood Swiss psychiatrist has to say about the anima. There is an image in man which corresponds to the deepest reality in a man. It belongs to him, this perilous image of woman. She stands for the loyalty which in the interests of life he must sometimes forego. She is the solace for all the bitterness of life. The anima is the kind of feminine part of a man's psyche, his soul. The center of a man is female, and not feminine per what our culture illustrates as feminine, but it is the amalgamation of the feminine at more archaic roots, feeling, intuition, creativity, the capacity for nurturing a loved one, and the capacity to nurture oneself. Love and kindness are not just particles floating in the air for people to grasp at, they're built into us, into our DNA, into our subconscious, and this site is the anima. A man forfeiting this element damages himself and others. Yet, in a world where men are raiding, pillaging, taking, batting down the hatches and hiding that part of yourself can become a means of survival. And that is the symbol of Bill. Bill, of course, meaning protection. Bill and Frank are two halves of man. Bill, the outer layer, the rigid protection that the world demands, and Frank, the warm center worth protecting. What is the value of protection if there's nothing within worth saving? The Last of Us has been very, very intentional with the way that they name their characters. For example, Ellie means light. And that's what this entire show has been promoting, looking for the light. It's very hard to imagine this was all done by accident. Back to the episode now, we see these two elements of man interact with one another throughout the course of the whole third installment, much like the internal dialogue of many men. I love this argument scene. It so perfectly illustrates the qualms of manhood. Bill doesn't want to blow resources on silly things that serve no practical function, but Frank doesn't see it that way. Within the anima, rationale seldom exists, and nor should it. There are experiences far above rationale, above sense, that feed the soul and introduce some merit to life. Like the Little Prince reminds us, it is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Sure, the body lives off food, water, and physical resources, but the soul, the anima, it lives off enigmatic phenomena. It's not silliness. As we see the consequences of malnutrition in that area, they won't manifest as dehydration, but they'll manifest as anxiety, neurosis, a kind of inner deadness. A kind of inner deadness you see in a lot of older male individuals. Because the West is in dire spiritual drought, and a flower shop with no customers? That doesn't sound like such a bad thing to have in a cold, violent existence. Hell, it might be the only thing that makes sense. This episode illustrates the ping-pong match between these facets of manhood until it reaches a point of maturation. And this final shot tells us everything we need to know on the matter of manhood. The open window. This is the answer to man's qualms, his suffering, and his fear. Openness, vulnerability, and the strength to know when it's needed. Did you notice the episode's ending song correlates to their secret radio code? 70s means new stock. Renewal. Mending the masculine and the feminine brings renewal. Rebirth. A man too soft, perhaps too dominated by the anima, will bend too far to the wind and break. We saw Frank was in rough shape. He wouldn't have lasted much longer if Bill's diligence didn't rescue him. But perhaps a worse fate is a man completely sealed off. Like the author James Hollis writes, men's fear alienates them from their own anima, the principle of relatedness, feeling, and connection to the life force. This is a man who isn't a man. He's become something else, a monstrosity of the world, and infected. In a way, Bill and Frank don't die. They mend. The Little Prince reminds us, I'll look as if I'm dead, and that won't be true. I'd wager, even at the risk of sounding trite, that each of us experience a Bill and Frank-like conflict. This back and forth between the feminine and the masculine is man's eternal dance, and one that must be made with some level of grace, lest we fall too far one way and become abominations. When these halves are mended, conjoined, you find a man proud of his introversion, steadfast and capable, knowing he can survive in life alongside valuable emotional experiences. This final shot is a conclusive statement, a hard, rigid exterior capable of protection, and an open center, ready to love that which finds its way in. Because, as German psychologist Erich Fromm reminds us, the mature response to the problem of existence is love. This is the reality Joel is faced with when he reads that letter. A part of him rises up from deep within, that anima I mentioned, and it wants to mourn Tess. It wants him to fall to his knees, prostrate at his pain, but he decides not to. Look at his eyes here. This isn't strength, it's fear. Fear of feeling, what psychologist Erich Neumann described as the fear of the feminine. The Bill we met at the start of the episode is where Joel is now. Joel wasn't ready for the anima's intervention, whereas Bill was. The anima is there and needs to be made whole, and the more one denies her existence or deliberately suppresses her, the more violent she becomes. And this violence can lead to the collapse of civilization. It's so fitting that this conflict is illustrated in an apocalypse show, as this collective loss of manhood creates what Erich Neumann described as a world that, in its soullessness, presents an unprecedented danger for humanity. We cannot delve further into the significance of a full development of the archetypal feminine potential for a new, future society. We've been shown the destiny of any society which grows detached from strong but nurturing men, which leads me to a prediction. I predict Joel is going to fall further into savagery, further into coldness, until a sink or swim moment where he's finally forced to love or perish. The episode title suggests we may have a long, long time to go, but as episode 3 has promised us, it's on its way. That's gonna wrap this episode up. Sorry, it took a little longer to come out. It's quick and easy to write jokes, but for the more analytical shit, I like to polish things. I'm gonna play it by ear for the rest of the season. If there are more episodes like this, I'll do deep dives, but there's probably gonna be some more comedic stuff too. If you made it this far, thank you. Please go ahead and subscribe with notifications on. I really appreciate you waiting until the end here, and I'll catch you guys next week.